The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings and welcome to another John Lebang Show. Thank you, Earthlings, for joining me once again. Few weeks since you've heard me behind the microphone. Wanted to thank Shady for taking over the reins last week. I was, and still am, in some ways, in the void. And that's where I'm coming to you from. So the news this week, there's a lot of it, and I don't know if I'm up to just giving you a basic old news show. We'll dabble in it. I was a little distracted prepping for this show with some other things. We've got a lot of personal issues happening, including what we're going to do about getting the studio finally completely up to date. And we'll probably touch on that most of the broadcast, or at least a good portion of the broadcast, talk about what's going to be happening with us. You get in a lot of trouble when you complain about politicians because there are certain people who are in the politicians' camp. Recently, we had the vice president show up and disrupt everything around here. I made a video. You heard complaints. I'm not allowed to complain that a guy disrupts us because he wants to do something. I'm not allowed to do that, but he's allowed to do that. So we're not allowed to complain about that. So complaining about this next issue or pointing out, see, a lot of people will call it complaining when it's really just pointing out some facts. And our displeasure with the facts. We, and I know a lot of the country, not just us, but we got hit with some really heavy rain. And there were certain parts of the area that were completely flooded underwater. Flooded to the roofs of their cars, into their houses, basements flooded. It dawned on me that, well, wait a minute, this has happened before in this very same area. And it wasn't all that long ago. And what did the politicians do back then to solve that problem so this would never happen again? Because it's a pretty regular cycle that every once in a while our area gets hit with too much rain, too fast, and we get some flash flooding. It happens. In all these years since the last time, the politicians have done nothing to correct the problem. So there you go. What happens? People get flooded again. People then have their houses destroyed. The damage that water can do to an infrastructure of a house, the wood, the drywall, and in some cases even the foundation. It can be devastating. And then you got to get emergency relief from the government, because the government wasn't proactive, the city government or the county government wasn't proactive enough to foresee that this would happen again, because, oh my goodness, it's a cycle that happens every 10 or 11 years, practically following the exact cycle the world has. This normal cycle where it gets too hot, it rains too much sometimes. It happens. Anybody who's been around for a long time and has paid attention understands and knows that there's a cycle to weather. Sometimes you have inclement weather, and other times you have good seasons, and that happens in a cycle. Some people who don't put that together, or who don't have the historical knowledge of this, then think it's something called climate change, which in my estimation, the term climate change is the most generic name you could give something. You could blame everything on climate change if you're just, diligent enough. Oh, it flooded in an area like it did 10 or 11 years ago. That's got to be climate change. Sure it is. Doesn't mean it's because man did it. But whatever. We've gone over that subject a million times. And that's why I'm having trouble dabbling in the news this hour, because we've gone over most of this a million times, and it continues to be a problem. It persists when it should have been dealt with many moons ago, long time ago. Speaking of that, we've got a big old asteroid coming that we're going to talk about a little later too. That's one of the more interesting things in the news, although it's a little hype over bite. But aren't we used to that now? Because we're probably going to get into Avengers Endgame at some point. I mean, it's making money, folks. So, what did Mark Hamill say? Just because a movie makes a lot of money, ergo, doesn't mean it's a good movie. I think that's befitting of the latest Avengers. So we had the flooding that was it was awful to see. You couldn't get around. A normal 5-10 minute trip took like 30 minutes because of the infrastructure not being able to handle the massive amount of water that was pushed in at once. I'm starting to wonder why other people don't see it, and what the role of governments should be as opposed to what they are today. Government should protect us from things that would destroy our freedom, like a flood. They should know by historical evidence that a flood in this part of the country could happen, and it usually happens about, once every 10 years, 11 years, depending a little bit, but it's pretty darn regular. Why they haven't taken measures to do that? They're more worried about other things. And in fact, we know a politician's job, once they're elected, is not to get something done to protect the people and to help the people. And I'm not talking about giving them stuff. You could give them back their money, but that's another story. The government's job these days, or the politicians that is just to get reelected. Because that's all that matters. So they'll get reelected, but they won't do anything. And the people continue this cycle. And then when this area gets devastated, instead of ousting those politicians that have done nothing for the past 10 years, they're going to go to the insurance companies, and then we're going to have to declare a state emergency, which means everybody's going to have to pay for their thing, their problem, because the politician didn't do anything to prevent their problem. Just like it did 10 years ago. Yet, they didn't do anything about it. Couldn't you dig a cheap way? Here's an idea. A cheap way, couldn't you dig the creek deeper? The creek that overflowed. Can't you make it deeper? Dig it out a little bit. Is that hard? Because we're going to have, and it happens here, folks, on a regular basis. We'll go through a dry spell in the summer. No water for weeks. It's normal. We get a lot of rain this time of year, and then it chills out until August, where we get big storms. Pretty normal. We get hot here. We get cold in the winter, hot here. We have sometimes in 1 year 100 to 120 degree difference in temperature within 6 months. Now, that's what you're talking about, climate change. And that's a normal thing. Here, over 100-degree difference some years in a 6-month period. So when they tell me that mankind is affecting the Earth's climate and it's going to change the temp 2 degrees over 100 years or 3 degrees over 100 years, I'm like, oh, we can handle that. That ain't no problem. We handle much worse here in Michigan. In fact, I would invite people who are in a relatively stable climate and who are used to that to move to Michigan for about 3 years. That's all you got. You'll see climate change on a regular basis, and then when you go back home, you'll be all set. You won't worry about the little differences that you might get because your stable environment just changed for a day or two or a week. You'll understand it. Some parts of the world, it happens dramatically all the time as a regular thing. And until you are willing to understand that, and it just takes a little bit of historical knowledge, people. People would rather watch the Game of Turds and a bunch of other TV shows, The Walking No Minds, and stuff like that, than do research to find out what the average climate is in an area, how much it varies. But this is probably boring conversation to the average individual who would enjoy a movie like Endgame that moved really fast. Yeah, you might enjoy the special we just recently had, The Adventures. That one moved quite fast, considerably fast. And the time travel that went on in that special was a lot more thought out than the time travel that went on in Avengers Endgame. But hey, they get the big bucks. The banger will just continue to produce the best material when it comes to those storytelling things, and will allow Marvel and Disney to make all the money. Because that's where people want to throw their money at. They want to throw their money at the big boys. Screw the little guy. We might as well we just have one big company in every sector. We'll have one big media company, we'll call it Disney. We'll have one big computer company, we'll call it Microsoft. We'll have one big shopping company, we'll call it Amazon. We'll have one big internet company, we'll call it Google. And eventually there'll be just one company for every segment of product and service there is. And then you just know who to go to when there's a problem. And there'll be no competition, prices will be through the roof, and hey, you'll like it because that's exactly what you've been asking for. We've got to take a quick break, folks. Be right back. Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Does your house need a paint job, but you don't want to do it? Then call Tom at Quality One Painting. He can handle all of your interior and exterior painting needs. He gives free estimates and senior discounts. Call Tom at Quality One. 313-982-2986. That's 313-982-2986. Quality One Painting.
You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
And it's so much fun. Why you keep talking? Oh, am I not supposed to? No. Oh, back to John. So we really didn't have a whole lot planned for this hour as far as fun and games because we've had a lot going on outside of just the broadcast that we got to focus our attention to. And hopefully it's not diminishing the broadcast that much, but it's a necessary evil as we're trying to make this show better and really get the entire setup here on the next level. Because, folks, we have to expand, we have to be able to grow, and we have to be able to start bringing in some cash flow. Hopefully everybody can bear with us as we're going through this transition, moving to bigger and better things, and giving you a broadcast that's worthy of the John Lebang Show each and every week. Because we can't give you a broadcast that resembles something from 3 years ago. Because we have to improve our craft and we have to get better every week. And to get better, you have to, as a person and an individual, as a radio show, as a business, whatever the case may be, to get better, you have to do something that tops what you did in the past. And maybe that's why Avengers Endgame went the way it did, because I don't think they could have topped Infinity War. That was a tight movie. And switching over to that for just a moment, I thought Avengers Endgame was not coherent. It wasn't tight. It was all over the board, and it created so many plot holes that it staggers the imagination that they were trying to conclude these arcs. In the process of doing that, they opened up all these other things that weren't there before, so the conclusion was less satisfying from a long-term, not only MCU fan, but from a comic book fan in general. I left that movie not only unimpressed, but I was like, really? That's what you gave us for the end? That's it. But as the show goes on, we'll talk about that. But I thought, you know what? We should probably touch on some of the news, because many of you who have tuned in all these years have grown accustomed, and that's some of the purpose of you showing up, is to hear some of this stuff. So we have the Palestinians firing rockets into Israel again, and Israel, in normal fashion, and I don't blame them, retaliates. And you got to love the mainstream media who calls it Gaza-Israel hostilities, because they're trying to get you unfocused on the reason these things happen is because the Palestinians, who seem to favor radical beliefs and can never have peace with their neighbor, decided to fire random rockets for no apparent reason. I'm sure they have reasons. They always have reasons why they want to kill people. They always have reasons for that. So, we have to accept that their reasons are their reasons. And because they have reasons, it should be accepted that their grievances should be heard. And it doesn't matter that they started the firefight, the launching of missiles, the attacks. Doesn't matter that, because the media is going to say, oh, there were some Palestinian children killed. Because Israel dared to counterstrike, dared to do anything. But that's the media for you. They say that on the border. Trump dares to stop the illegal immigrants from coming into the country, and that's a bad thing. You can't do that. You can't dare stop somebody from doing something illegal. Palestinians firing rockets into Israel, I think that's illegal. I could be wrong. Maybe not in Palestine, but in Israel, that's illegal. And if you respect the sovereignty of a country, which we know the Palestinians don't, if we respect the sovereignty of a country, we don't fire rockets into there. But we fire rockets into there. That's okay. And they expect Israel not to fire back. In somewhat of a related news, but here back in the United States, we could say a companion story of sorts. This shocking video came out, and I'm not going to play any of it because it's so dang shocking, of children in a Philadelphia Muslim society chanting that they will chop off the heads of anybody who isn't an Allah follower. And there's much more to this video. The Muslim American Society Islamic Center in Philadelphia posted a video to its Facebook page celebrating Ummah Day. I hope I pronounced that right, so I didn't offend anybody. In which young children were wearing Palestinian scarves, saying and reading poetry about killing for Allah. Yeah, that's American. I said it a long time ago, and it's a belief of mine. And I have nothing directly, no angst towards any in religion in particular or any people in particular. But as a observer of the world, and I have come to the conclusion that Islam can't get along with Western culture. They're not going to. They hate it. If you're not Islamic and of a specific sect, for that matter, then you're an infidel. And they teach their kids that they should be killing people and chopping their heads off. That's just, you say too much and you get in trouble. But this is not an American way of thinking. And I just don't think Islam in its truest form is compatible with Western beliefs. You can't have women in scarves blocking their face and be considered Western. We gave women freedom here in the West. They're not happy with it. They want more. They want more than freedom. It wasn't great that they got the vote and they could go out in the workforce and they can do whatever they want. Still not good. There's a bunch of groups of women who still aren't happy with the amount of freedom. It's not good enough. So whatever. And guys like me somehow are in some kind of patriarchy. We're the problem. Although I don't see it that way. There's a certain group that westernized the world, and westernizing the world has done nothing but good for the most part. Some bad things. Let's not pull punches here. There have been some bad things, nuclear weapons and a few other things. Not good. But having a toilet that flushes and sends the sewage out somewhere else where it can be processed, that's a pretty good thing. And there's a whole host of other things. And it's Western society that came up with most of these things. The world's a strange place, and we have to navigate through all this stuff. And unfortunately, we have groups like is portrayed in this Muslim American Society Islamic Center video from Philadelphia. Now, if you're in Philadelphia, do you want to be around places like this? Do you want this stuff in your neighborhood where they're preaching this stuff? Where at any moment, if there was a call, and let's be frank, ladies and gentlemen, the religious groups out there, whether it be Islam, Christian, whatever, if there's a call to something, boy, oh boy, there's a lot of people who show up and do it. We just had the recent thing with the guy who pledged to ISIS. Following that call. These things that are inside the Muslim American Society of Islamic Center are not American. We don't call for the beheading of anybody. We respect all religions, whether we like them or not. Because if we didn't, we would ban religions like this and satanic religions. Religions formed in secret societies. We'd find ways to get rid of them if we were that way. But our tolerance to all religions, because we have freedom of religion, is leading us to groups like this embedding themselves inside the country. And if there is ever a call to get the radicals uprised, people in this little neighborhood in Philadelphia might be in some big trouble if they're not Islamic, if they're part of a group that they decide to target. In some way, I mean, we rail against forms of racism, but this is religionism. Did I just create religionism? And religionism can be just as bad as racism, in my opinion. I think I just made up religionism. So people who are scholars will scoff at me for making up a word because it's not a word. Although all words are made up, according to Thor in Avengers Infinity War. Hey, we have got to take a break. Look at the time. Another segment has been expired. We'll be right back on the other side of this.
Don't move a muscle. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes! Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
So now that I've probably angered anybody from the Islamic religion, might as well anger the Trump bots too, because why not? Hate mail is the biggest thing I get, so I might as well keep it coming. So Trump and his administration are signaling that in the coming weeks that they're going to seek the permanent renewal of the surveillance law that has, among other things, enabled the NSA to gather and analyze Americans' phone records as part of terrorism investigations. Now, I remember listening to Donald Trump talk about spying on him and how it was bad. And I remember his followers, Michael Savage and Alex Jones and all of them, always railing against this. Well, and I know his people that voted for him hated the Patriot Act. Now, it looks like the administration wants to permanently in place the Patriot Act so that forever the NSA can gather your phone records. For no reason, no warrant, just because something called terrorism. White House officials said they were prepared to issue a public statement calling on Congress to reauthorize in full Section 215 of the Patriot Act. So now Trump, who's just furthering Obama, who is just furthering Bush, and you people who love Trump, I'm going to ask you, is this something you want? Because it's starting to be apparent that the things that you elected him and the Congress that went in with him to do isn't happening. There's no agenda there. A few things happened in the beginning through executive order, which most of us didn't like in the first place. When Obama was doing it, why would we be happy with the Trumpster doing it? But hey, that's fine. No repeal of Obamacare. The tax cut went mostly to rich corporations so they would get bigger breaks. They didn't reduce their costs to us. They didn't bring down their prices to the consumer. From what I can tell, the raises weren't really there either. They say they're in some sectors or were, but overall, everybody didn't get a boost at the job. They didn't increase everybody's wages. The only way that's going up is because they keep raising the minimum wage, which by now, longtime listeners of the John Lebang Show will know that all that is a way to tax people more, to get more tax revenue. They raise your income, or they raise your income. That means they get more tax revenue. You don't really get a whole lot of benefit out of that. You think you do, but again, 30% or so gets stolen by the federal government and the state government and everybody else who wants to get their greedy little fingers on your money. But that's not good enough. They want their greedy little ears in your telephone calls, and they want their greedy little eyes in your emails. If they could, and they're going to try, they would get their greedy little fingers all over your brain. But they've got that pretty much covered through propaganda and through most of the mainstream outlets who shovel the garbage that they want shoveled to you. And then we get the false duality, like the two-party system. They argue and argue and argue over every little thing, and then in the end, what happens? It always shifts one way. It never comes back closer to the Constitution, closer to the American way of life. It keeps shifting over to the left, further and further to the left. And over time, it's going to be so far left, we're going to think we're in communist Russia. And then I guess by then, we won't hate Russia anymore. Maybe Russia will be more free than here. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? The once great superpower communist state might have more freedom than the United States one day if we keep heading down the path that we're headed. We're more, worried about this group's problems than the individual's problems, although there are far more individuals than there are groups. And if people would quit associating with groups and say, no, I'm an individual. I have needs, and you can't trample on those needs, no matter what. You can't trample on me no matter what. Doesn't matter if I'm part of this group or that group. I don't need to be part of that. But people think they're stronger in numbers instead of a whole bunch of 360 million individuals standing up and saying, no, you can't do that. Because that's really what the people should be saying about everything. No, government, you can't do that. No. Sorry, no. Because if we don't say no, they take it as a yes. And then they implement this. And then they implement that. And if we don't keep saying no, eventually so much will be implemented that it'll be implied that you're a slave to the system. I'm already implying that. You are a slave. When they can forcibly take money out of your paycheck. Again, I can't find the right of the government to do that. Now, many will say, well, they need money for things. Well, there's ways they could do that. Bonds and all other sorts of... They could get rid of the Federal Reserve, which we've talked about ad nausea here. See, that's why we're considering changing things up here and taking a different approach to the whole show, ladies and gentlemen. We've spoken about things to the point where we're tired of talking about it. It doesn't change. the people don't change, the people don't wake up. So if we're going to continue to do a show that's of high quality, we better change ourselves, because the world isn't going to change, and it's going to continually head down something that we fought against. And sometimes as a commentator on society and the world, you get a little discouraged when you see it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many times you say something. It doesn't matter how many times you're shown that you're right in something. If they would have just listened, doesn't matter. Because the world's going to go the way it goes. And there's not enough people willing to say, no, don't go there. No. No is a very strong word, yet we don't hear enough. We only hear it from the opposition party. We all should be saying no to the government on everything. No, you can't do that. Nope, you can't do that either. Because once a government thinks they can do whatever they want, they will. And you know who's going to suffer? The individual. Because they're going to pander to parties, and they're going to pander to groups and agendas instead of freedom for the individual. And when you allow Donald Trump, who is supposed to be the champion of the right, the champion of freedom, by many of you who love him, and he does or signals that he's going to extend the part of the Patriot Act that permanently will spy on you from this day forward. You have to ask yourself, am I supporting the right guy? Is he really the guy he said he was? Obamacare's still there. You didn't get the big tax cut, the corporation did. The border is a problem bigger than it's ever been. The wall's not up. Certain sections are, other sections aren't. You can blame it on the Democrats, but he's getting more done with the Democrats. $2 trillion infrastructure program. And it was Trump and the Democrats who agreed on it. We may get some flack from the Republicans because that's their job. They're better as the opposition party because when they're in power, they can't get anything done because they really weren't supposed to get anything done. I could tell you to go out and vote to make the changes, but that doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I had an amazing poll question this week. Are we headed to the second American Civil War? It was near 90% of the people who voted said, yes, we're heading to the second American Civil War. And half the people who voted that we weren't heading to the second Civil War weren't from America. They were from another country. So you have to wonder if they even know what the internal struggles are going on here in the country. They only get what the news. And if you're getting your information from BBC or CNN, you're not getting your news from enough sources then, and they're not giving you a more diverse view of the situations going on. They're giving you a narrow idea because they want you to believe something. Because that's all that matters is you believe something. And if they put you in this camp and that camp and they're opposing beliefs, you guys will fight amongst yourselves instead of realizing that it's the ones directing you to fight amongst yourselves that's the problem. They don't want you focusing on them. They want you focusing on each other. Because if you're not focusing on them, they can pass laws that are permanently going to surveil you. And what was the big news this week? Bar in Congress, hearings, not coming. Now they're going to give him an ultimatum. He's going to get a contempt. All that was going on. Political theater going on. While Trump, behind the scenes, not only agrees with the Democrats on a $2 trillion spending program, $2 trillion, That's half the yearly income of the government. Think about that. And he's signaling, his administration that is signaling that they're going to make or sign a permanent Patriot Act law that's going to grant the National Security Agency, the NSA, the power to do virtually anything they want when it comes to your phone data. And he's supposed to be on your side, right? Up against the break.
Smoke them if you got them.
Because the John LeBang Show will be right back.
After this.
That's guaranteed. Yes.
At Absolute Skin and Body Care, they only use the best laser equipment in the industry so that you receive the best results possible. They'll explain all the procedures in detail and answer all of your questions. Absolute Skin and Body Care. If you're looking for skin rejuvenation, laser lipo, or laser hair removal, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Their office phone numbers are 248-305-3000. That's 248-305-3000. Absolute Skin and Body Care.
You're listening to the John LeBang Show.
And it's so much fun.
Now, those watching on the Banger Cam will have noticed I've been wearing my hat and I've got glasses on. These are 3D glasses because I thought this hour would be appropriate to wear 3D glasses when I'm trying to give you a 3D vision of what's really happening in the world without being, too boisterous. I've tried to keep it on the low key. Sometimes, sometimes I get a little wound up, and it's just not worth it right now. We've got other things to focus on, but because we have to be here to give you the broadcast, because you want to hear us. There are people listening. But trust me, after we get all this stuff sorted out, this show's going to be better than it ever has. We're looking at all kinds of improvements and changes that should not only benefit us on our end. We're hoping to automate a lot of things on top of it, but it should make it easier to come to you not only with the same 3 hours that we broadcast, but we might be able to squeeze in more because we're going to have time. What we're doing is in the most part trying to make things so it's easier on us, so things can flow easier, so we can put in more time, better broadcast. We can get, of course, more advertisers, which is a big problem we need to correct with this show. Is we have some great advertisers, but we need more. Because we need to sustain this. And we're not playing the Patreon game. And we're not playing the, please donate to us every week. Blah, blah. Or we're not doing the Alex Jones, which is just one giant infomercial now on his own products. We have products that you can buy. You can get those on the website. And you can donate to the show on the website. But we don't sit there and beg you for money. We want the money we get to be earned. And so we're going to make the show better, stronger, a little easier to do for us so we can have time to build other things, especially the marketing. That's something we lack in because we just don't have the time to do it. But we're going to real soon. Quickly, as we're into this final segment, I want to get to the last roundup on news because some of you want to know what's going on. There's this new thing. It was tested out in Colorado called quadratic voting. And these people, and personally I think it's disastrous, but whatever. The concept is that each voter is given a certain number of tokens. Let's pretend for just to make it easy, we each get 100 points to vote. Now you can spend these vote tokens, or whatever you want to call them, for a variety of candidates and issues. Casting one vote for one candidate or an issue will cost you, let's say, one vote. Now, if you want to vote twice for that thing, it'll cost you 4 points. And then so on. It doubles and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The idea is there. If you're really passionate about something, you can put a lot of votes behind it. It'll just cost you money, or cost you votes, or vote points. Oh, how dangerous this can be. They're saying this is going to ease the zealotry in politics, and I think it's going to cause zealotry in politics, because if you get a responsible person, they'll spread one vote around everybody. But see, you can only have so many votes too. So if there's an item that there's more than 100 items on the ballot, let's say, you won't be able to vote for everything either if it's based on that 100-point system that I just brought up for the simplicity of it all. But that would be a responsible voter. One vote here, one vote here, one vote here, so on and so forth. But you're going to get the zealots that are going to go, I don't care. All these other things, these people I don't care about, judges or whatever. I don't care about these. So I'm going to place all my votes, as many as I can squeeze into one person or one thing. So you could tip the balance of voting, because you have the one subject voter, which for the most part, the larger voting population is that they're a 1 or 2 or 3 issue voter. That's it. They don't think of the broad. They don't think of all the layers of everything that it takes to have good people in, or to have good laws. They get 1, 2, or 3 little issues. And in this voting system, which they used in Colorado just recently, they love it. The Democrats love this, and I can see why. You can get all your people to put their weight behind 3 issues and get them passed through no matter what. And you just make them 3 huge key issues. Boom. You don't have to worry about the little things. Don't even worry about them. That's one thing. I think it's terrible. I would make it harder to vote. But that sounds like I'm just being a mean guy. But unless you own something, property that is, I don't see why you should get any vote in, like, for millages for the local election. If you don't own property, but you're voting on raising property taxes, how does that work? Because you're going to vote to raise property taxes because it doesn't affect you, no matter what. And the people who don't want that, who are property owners, who don't want to pay higher taxes because we're already taxed to death, have to suffer. Because the people are allowed to vote on a subject that doesn't cost them anything. Maybe 1 vote per household would be a lot better, because if you have a big family and you convince the whole family, but at 1 person, 1 vote. 1 person, 1 vote. And now it's beyond that in Colorado. If this gets normalized, you're going to be able to have 100 votes for one thing and skip all the others. Boy, those people who vote for president and skip out all the other categories and they're just that presidential, boy, you could get maybe 10 votes in for one person during the presidential campaign. Get that person in. You only have to focus on a couple things and screw the little stuff. The little stuff won't even count for anything anymore, but whatever. Let's do that, because that's democracy at its worst. Couple other things I want to get to. The Department of Defense is studying military options for Venezuela. Yeah. So we may intervene over there because why? I don't know. We don't intervene in Mexico, which seems to be our biggest concern from my point of view. They're our biggest problem. As far as any country on the planet right now, it's not Russia, it's not China. Mexico is our problem. They're enabling people from other countries to traverse their land just so they will enter into the United States. Yeah, that's a problem. Maybe not to some, but to people like me, that's a problem. Next, in a related story, fighter jets with missile-killing lasers take another step towards reality. We've been building these lasers. We have them in the Navy on some ships. Now they're trying to make them smaller to knock out missiles that are coming in, especially with North Korea now deciding to fire off another missile recently. Looks like that's not going to work out so well with North Korea, and we're probably going to have to deal with that. That'd be great if they can just blast them and it disintegrates, because that would be kind of cool. I mean, the technology, on the other hand, could be used on a human. You could just erase people from the earth and it'd be just like no remains at all. So the good and the bad with technology. In another related story, sexual assaults in the military rise more than 20,000, Pentagon survey says. Now, on the face of it, many of you are going to go, oh, those women are getting raped. Well, not necessarily the case. There's women, but there are also cases of men being raped by other men. And that's what happens. You wanted women in the military, and you didn't think about the fact that not only will they probably get raped if they are ever captured by their in a war, or you didn't care. You didn't care that women would do that or get, be that way. But now they're being raped by people in the military. When you put men and women together, the odds of that are going to go up. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying the men should be doing this or the women should, I'm just saying that you put more women in the military with a bunch of high testosterone guys, it's more than likely going to rise, and it's unfortunate. But we're also finding out that there are more men being raped in the military too by men, and well, when you open the doors to gay people, to gay men to go into the military, that's probably going to increase as well, and it's not surprising. I'm not commenting one way or the other on how I feel. I'm just saying that you let a bunch of women in the military when you didn't have them before, that's going to automatically increase the rate, the sexual assaults. It's going to already do it. Vice versa, if you allow more homosexuals in the military, you're going to get a rise in homosexual sexual assaults against men. Just common sense. I'm not saying one way or the other how I feel about this. You can decide how you feel about that. I'm just saying that's going to happen. If you didn't want the rise in all this, you shouldn't have allowed either one to increase. That's just an opinion on. I'm not saying I fall on that category or fall in another category. And then we have in California, they have an algorithm that was just approved by a judge that can clean a criminal's past in an instant. And it can do thousands at a time. Now, why would you want to clear a criminal's past of all wrongdoings? That's for you to decide, but hell, that means most of them could probably vote, which means most of them are going to vote for the people who expunged their records or the people who are for expunging their records, and you're going to get an increase in that. All right, what else do we have? Oh, NASA is starting to prepare for a huge asteroid they're calling God of Chaos. Or if you've been listening to the Banger Music Hour, one of the bands from the United Kingdom, Nitroville, just put out a song, Apophis 2029, and that's exactly what they're talking about in NASA. On April 2029, April 13th, mind you, People looking towards the sky will see a light streaking across, which will quickly get brighter and faster. It will be traveling so fast that it will cross the width of the moon in a minute and will be as bright as the stars in the skies. It's going to be coming within 19,000 miles of the Earth. That's a pretty close. If scientists are off by any measure on their calculations, we could be hit by this thing, or we could, like Nitroville is suggesting in their song, I think, or we could not, it could be not even that close. But yeah, 19,000 miles is not that far away, and who knows if it's, so we've got at least that long before we die, 2029, before the Earth is dead. Scientists say it's going to miss us, but scientists aren't always right. So go freak out, people, if you want to freak out. And the last thing on the agenda, UFO information not expected to go to general public, says the Navy. No crap, it's never gone to general public. They're not going to, because probably for the most part, most UFOs seen by the general public are some kind of secret government aircraft that they don't want you to know about. So they're going to keep it secret. And when they do release the documents, it's going to be redacted as hell, and you'll have to deal with it. So with that being said, folks, thank you for tuning in to the John Lebang Show. I want to thank all the affiliate stations for carrying the broadcast. Go to our website, www.jlebang.com. I want to thank you, the listeners, who have been truly awesome in your patronage of the show. You keep coming to each and every week, and I appreciate it. Promise you that bigger and better things are coming. We just have to get through a little bit of transition period here to the stations that have been wondering what's going on our end. Just follow what I just said to the listeners, because it is the thing. We are in a transition period to make this broadcast so much better. And with that being said, we got to get on out of here. So until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, I'm John Lebang, signing off from the Banger Studios.
Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Tune in again next week. Same time, same space.